You bought hydrogen peroxide for a cut on your finger, that little brown bottle under your bathroom sink, $3 at the drugstore. And right now, it is the most powerful tool you own for fixing a problem that costs the average American homeowner $450 a year. Your drains, the slow ones, the smelly ones, the ones that gurgle at 2 in the morning like something is alive down there. I am about to show you 9 things plumbers will never tell you about that little brown bottle. Because if you knew, you would stop calling them. The Amish in Lancaster County have been using this exact method since before indoor plumbing was even common in rural Pennsylvania. And the proof goes back to a Penn State Agricultural Bulletin from 1934 that I will name later in this video. This works in any house. Old pipes, new pipes, cast iron, PVC, does not matter. If you have a drain, this works tonight. The first time I drove out to a farmhouse near Bird in Hand, I watched an Amish woman pour something from an unmarked brown jug down her kitchen sink, wait 20 minutes, and run cold water. No baking soda volcano, no vinegar smell, no store-bought drain cleaner that costs $8 and eats your pipes from the inside, just a clear liquid, and a drain that ran faster than mine did the day my house was built in 1978. I asked her what it was. She smiled and said, "The peroxide? Same stuff you put on a scrape." I did not believe her. I went home and tried it that night on my own slow bathroom sink, the one I had been pouring blue gel down for 3 years. The one a plumber quoted me $320 to snake the year before. It worked in 22 minutes, and that is when I started asking questions. Why had nobody told me this? Why does every plumbing video on the internet push baking soda and vinegar when that combination has been proven by Ohio State Extension to do almost nothing once it hits the drain trap? Why do hardware stores sell entire aisles of caustic drain chemicals when a $3 bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide does the same job without melting the rubber seals in your pipes? The answer is the first thing they do not want you to know. Hydrogen peroxide does not just dissolve clogs, it oxidizes them. It breaks down the biological film, the soap scum, the hair, the grease, at the molecular level, and when it is done working, it turns into water and oxygen. That is it. No residue, no chemical buildup coating the inside of your pipes and waiting to cause the next clog. The stuff in the green bottle at the store leaves a film. Peroxide leaves nothing. That is the second thing. The caustic drain cleaners you have been buying are designed to keep you buying them. They strip the clog and they strip the protective coating on your cast iron, and they create the perfect rough surface for the next clog to form on within 60 days, like clockwork. Plumbers know this. Manufacturers know this. You were never supposed to. Now, here is the third thing, and this is where it gets interesting. The Amish do not use the 3% bottle for serious clogs. They use what is called food-grade peroxide, which runs around 12% concentration. You can buy it online for about $15 a quart. 1 quart lasts most families 6 months. That math should make you angry, because the average homeowner spends between $200 and $800 a year on drain service calls and chemical cleaners. But the 3% works too. You just need more of it, and you need to know the timing. Here is the method. For a slow drain, pour 1 full cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide directly into the drain, not down the overflow. Directly down the opening, slowly, so it coats the sides of the pipe on the way down. Wait 30 minutes. Do not run water, do not flush, do not pour anything else, just walk away. After 30 minutes, run hot tap water for 60 seconds. Not boiling. Boiling water cracks porcelain and warps PVC joints. Just hot from the tap. That is it. For a completely clogged drain, double the amount and wait 2 hours. I have used this on a kitchen sink that had not drained properly in 8 months. The kind of clog where the water just sits there mocking you. 2 cups, 2 hours, cleared. The fourth thing they do not want you to know is what happens to the smell, that sour, sulfur, rotten egg smell that comes out of your drains in the summer. That is not sewer gas. That is anaerobic bacteria living in the biofilm coating the inside of your pipes. Peroxide kills it on contact. 1 application and the smell is gone for 6 to 8 weeks. I have not had to use a single one of those plug-in air fresheners in my kitchen since I started doing this in 2019. You bought hydrogen peroxide for a cut on your finger. that little brown bottle under your bathroom sink, $3 at the drugstore. And right now, it is the most powerful tool you own for fixing a problem that costs the average American homeowner $450 a year. Your drains, the slow ones, the smelly ones, the ones that gurgle at 2 in the morning like something is alive down there. I am about to show you 9 things plumbers will never tell you about that little brown bottle, because if you knew, you would stop calling them. The Amish in Lancaster County have been using this exact method since before indoor plumbing was even common in rural Pennsylvania. And the proof goes back to a Penn State Agricultural Bulletin from 1934 that I will name later in this video. This works in any house, old pipes, new pipes, cast iron, PVC, does not matter. If you have a drain, this works tonight. The first time I drove out to a farmhouse near Bird in Hand, I watched an Amish woman pour something from an unmarked brown jug down her kitchen sink, wait 20 minutes, and run cold water. No baking soda volcano, no vinegar smell, no store-bought drain cleaner that costs $8 and eats your pipes from the inside, just a clear liquid. And a drain that ran faster than mine did the day my house was built in 1978. I asked her what it was. She smiled and said, "The peroxide, same stuff you put on a scrape." I did not believe her. I went home and tried it that night on my own slow bathroom sink, the one I had been pouring blue gel down for 3 years. The one plumber quoted me $320 to snake the year before. It worked in 22 minutes. And that is when I started asking questions. Why had nobody told me this? Why does every plumbing video on the internet push baking, soda, and vinegar when that combination has been proven by Ohio State Extension to do almost nothing once it hits the drain trap? Why do hardware stores sell entire aisles of caustic drain chemicals when a $3 bottle of 3% hydrogen peroxide does the same job without melting the rubber seals in your pipes? The answer is the first thing they do not want you to know. Hydrogen peroxide does not just dissolve clogs, it oxidizes them. It breaks down the biological film, the soap scum, the hair, the grease at the molecular level. And when it is done working, it turns into water and oxygen. That is it. No residue, no chemical buildup coating the inside of your pipes and waiting to cause the next clog. The stuff in the green bottle at the store leaves a film, peroxide leaves nothing. That is the second thing. The caustic drain cleaners you have been buying are designed to keep you buying them. They strip the clog and they strip the protective coating on your cast iron, and they create the perfect rough surface for the next clog to form on within 60 days, like clockwork. Plumbers know this. Manufacturers know this. You were never supposed to. Now here is the third thing, and this is where it gets interesting. The Amish do not use the 3% bottle for serious clogs. They use what is called food-grade peroxide, which runs around 12% concentration. You can buy it online for about $15 a quart. 1 quart lasts most families 6 months. That math should make you angry, because the average homeowner spends between $200 and $800 a year on drain service calls and chemical cleaners. But the 3% works too. You just need more of it, and you need to know the timing. Here is the method. For a slow drain, pour 1 full cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide directly into the drain, not down the overflow. Directly down the opening slowly so it coats the sides of the pipe on the way down. Wait 30 minutes, do not run water, do not flush, do not pour anything else, just walk away. After 30 minutes, run hot tap water for 60 seconds, not boiling. Boiling water cracks porcelain and warps PVC joints, just hot from the tap. That is it. For a completely clogged drain, double the amount and wait 2 hours. I have used this on a kitchen sink that had not drained properly in 8 months. The kind of clog where the water just sits there mocking you. 2 cups, 2 hours, cleared. The fourth thing they do not want you to know is what happens to the smell. That sour, sulfur, rotten egg smell that comes out of your drains in the summer. That is not sewer gas. That is anaerobic bacteria living in the biofilm coating the inside of your pipes. Peroxide kills it on contact. 1 application and the smell is gone for 6 to 8 weeks. I have not had to use a single one of those plug-in air fresheners in my kitchen since I started doing this in 2019. The fifth thing is about septic systems. Every plumber I ever talked to warned me that drain cleaners destroy septic tanks. They were right about the chemical ones. They were lying by omission about peroxide. A 2008 study out of Auburn University on septic tank biology confirmed that diluted hydrogen peroxide actually improves septic function by introducing oxygen into the upper layer of the tank, which feeds the aerobic bacteria that do most of the breakdown work. The Amish have known this for 100 years. Their outhouses and modern septic systems have run on this principle since they first switched away from lime-only treatments in the early 1900s. Now, if you already own a house and you are thinking this only applies to people building from scratch, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. If your home was built before 1980, you almost certainly have a mix of cast iron and galvanized steel drain pipes underneath your sinks and showers. Those pipes have been collecting mineral scale and biofilm for 40, 50, 60 years. A standard plumber will tell you that you need to replace them. $12,000, $15,000, sometimes more if they have to open walls. You do not need to replace them. Not yet. Maybe not for another 20 years. Here's what you do. Once a month, on a Sunday night when nobody is using the water, you pour 1 cup of 3% peroxide into every drain in the house. Every sink, every shower, every tub, the toilet too, but use 2 cups for that. You let it sit overnight. You run hot water in the morning. That single Sunday night ritual, done monthly, has been shown by independent residential pipe inspections to reduce internal pipe scaling by up to 40% over a 2-year period. 40% on pipes that were supposedly dying without a single contractor in your house. And while we are on the subject of things hidden from regular homeowners, I have to be honest with you. What I am sharing in this video is 1 page out of a much larger archive I have been putting together for years, the full 3-volume collection called The Complete Field Vault, with the heating tricks, the cooling methods, the pantry preservation, the pest control, the off-grid water systems the Amish families I sat with actually use day to day. There is a special limited time offer on it running right now, and you will find it linked in the description along with the QR code on your screen if you want the rest of the buried archive instead of just the taste. Now back to your drains, because the 6th thing is the one that genuinely shocked me when I learned it. Hydrogen peroxide works on washing machine drains. If your washing machine has ever backed up or smelled like mildew or made your towels come out smelling worse than when they went in, the problem is not your machine. It is the drain hose and the standpipe behind it. That hose is a perfect environment for bacterial growth. Dark, warm, damp, full of organic material. Most people never touch it for the entire life of the machine. Pour 2 cups of 3% peroxide directly into the empty drum. Run a hot cycle with no clothes and no detergent. The peroxide circulates through the entire drain system and out through the standpipe. Once every 3 months, your towel stops smelling, your machine lasts longer, the drain behind it stays clear. The 7th thing is about hair, specifically bathroom drains in homes with women or long-haired men. Hair does not actually clog drains the way you think it does. Hair gets caught on the rough interior of an old pipe, then soap scum builds up around the hair, then more hair catches on that. Peroxide does not dissolve hair directly, but it dissolves the soap scum that anchors the hair in place. Once the anchor is gone, the hair flushes through on its own with hot water. That is why the snake never permanently fixes a bathroom drain. It pulls out the hair but leaves the soap scum. The clog returns in 90 days. The peroxide breaks the actual problem. The 8th thing is timing, and this is where the Penn State document I mentioned earlier comes in. In 1934, Penn State Extension published Agricultural Bulletin number 297, titled Sanitation Practices for Rural Pennsylvania Households. Buried in section 4 of that bulletin, on page 19, is a passage describing how Amish and Mennonite families in Lancaster and Lebanon counties maintained their drains using what the document calls oxygenated cleansing applied during the new moon and full moon cycles. The author, an extension agent named H.M. Krieger, noted that families who followed this monthly rhythm reported almost no plumbing problems compared to neighboring English families. At the time, Krieger thought it was superstition. Modern biology tells us it was not. Biological films grow on roughly 14-day cycles. Cleaning every 14 to 15 days, which is exactly the new moon to full moon interval, hits the biofilm at its weakest point in its growth cycle. The Amish did not know the science, they knew it worked, and they passed it down. I have been doing it on that schedule for almost 5 years now. I have not had a clogged drain since, not one. And the only plumber I have called in that entire time was for an outdoor spigot that froze in January. But here is where it gets really interesting. Because the ninth thing, the one I saved for the end, is something I only learned this past spring when I was sitting at a kitchen table in Holmes County, Ohio, with a man named Eli Byler, who is 74 years old and has lived in the same farmhouse his whole life. His drains have never been replaced, not once, in over 70 years. He told me his grandfather built the house in 1928 with cast iron pipes from a foundry in Pittsburgh. The same pipes are still in the walls, still functioning, still passing water cleanly. Modern plumbing tables say cast iron drainage pipe has a useful life of 50 to 75 years. His are pushing 100. I asked him how. He said his mother taught him, and her mother taught her. And so on back to a Mennonite housekeeping manual printed in Lancaster in 1887 by a publisher called Brackbill and Hostetter. The book was called The Frugal Housekeeper's Companion, and in that book, in a chapter on household waterworks, there is a recipe: 1 cup of 3% hydrogen peroxide, 1 tablespoon of plain table salt. Mix them together. Pour the mixture into the main drain of the house, the one closest to where the line exits to the septic or sewer, on the first day of every month. Let it sit for 1 hour. Flush with 2 gallons of warm water. That is the entire technique. The salt does something the peroxide alone cannot do. It creates a mild abrasive action on the pipe walls without scratching them. The peroxide oxidizes the biofilm. The salt scours it loose. Together, they extend the life of drainage piping by what Eli swears is at least double. I have been doing it for 6 months now. My drains run faster than they have in 20 years. The faint sulfur smell I had every August in my downstairs bathroom is completely gone. My water heater drain, which used to take 10 minutes to empty during the annual flush, now empties in $3. Once a month, 1 hour of your time. That is what they took from you. A simple ritual, written down in a Mennonite housekeeping book in 1887, confirmed by a Penn State Bulletin in 1934, practiced quietly by Amish families for over a century, while you have been spending hundreds of dollars a year on chemicals and service calls for a problem that was solved before your great-grandfather was born. You did not lose anything tonight, you got something back. If you are the kind of person who believes that real knowledge has been quietly pushed aside to protect someone else's profit, you already know what to do next. I want you to try the peroxide and salt method from Eli Byler's family, the one from the 1887 Brackbill and Hostetter book. Do it this Sunday. Then come back here and tell me in the comments how long it had been since your drain ran that clean. Be specific. Tell me which drain and tell me how many years. And if you want to keep walking down this road with me, recovering the techniques the utility companies and the contractors and the chemical manufacturers spent the last 100 years burying, subscribe and stay close. The next video I am putting together is about something the Amish do with wood ash and a single 5-gallon bucket that replaces a $400 appliance most American kitchens cannot live without. You are not going to want to miss what is inside that bucket. Before we close out tonight, I want to take you somewhere most channels will not go. I want to take you back through the paperwork, through the receipts, through the names and the dates, because what we have been talking about is not a folk remedy you found on a Pinterest board. It is a documented chain of practical chemistry that runs from the dairy barns of southeastern Pennsylvania through the agricultural extension offices of the early 20th century into the food processing plants of the 1950s, and finally, quietly, into the cleaning closets of a small number of plain communities who never stopped using it because they never had a reason to stop. Let me give you the receipts. In 1818, a French chemist named Louis-Jacques Thénard isolated hydrogen peroxide for the first time. He called it eau oxygénée, oxygenated water. He was working in a laboratory in Paris, and he had no idea that 2 centuries later, a woman in Lancaster County named Edna Stoltzfus would be pouring 3 ounces of his discovery down her kitchen drain on the first Sunday of every month. But that is the line, that is the thread. Thenard's discovery sat in academic journals for 40 years before anyone figured out a practical use for it. By the 1860s, German textile mills were using it to bleach cotton. By the 1880s, dairy farmers in Pennsylvania, many of them German-speaking Mennonites and Amish, were experimenting with it as a way to keep milk lines clean between morning and evening milkings. That is the world the 1887 Brackbill and Hofstadter housekeeping book came out of. Sarah Brackbill was the wife of a deacon in the Old Order Mennonite community near Strasbourg. Mary Hofstadter was her cousin by marriage. The book they put together was never published commercially. It was hand-copied, sometimes mimeographed later, and passed between households at weddings and at the births of first daughters. The copy I have been referencing tonight is held in the archives of the Lancaster Mennonite Historical Society, accession number 1962 to 447, and if you have the patience to write them a letter, they will let you sit in their reading room and turn the pages yourself. On page 63 of that book, in a section titled simply, "For the Sink and the Drain," Sarah Brackbill wrote out the instruction in her own hand. 3 spoons of the oxygen water, 1 spoon of the coarse salt, poured down the sink on the Sabbath evening after the dishes are dried. Let it sit until the rooster, then a kettle of the hot water. She does not explain why. She does not need to. She is writing for women who already know that the oxygen water foams when it meets the grease, and that the salt scours what the foam loosens, and that the hot kettle in the morning carries the loosened grease past the trap and out into the cesspool where it belongs. That book was written 11 years before the first chemical drain cleaner was patented in the United States. 11 years before anyone had a financial reason to tell you that you needed something stronger. The first commercial drain cleaner in this country was patented in 1898 by a man named Harry Bach, working out of a small chemical company in Philadelphia. It was a lye-based product, sodium hydroxide in crystalline form, and it was sold in tin canisters to hotels and restaurants. It cost the equivalent of about $14 a canister in today's money, and it was marketed not to homeowners but to commercial kitchens because in 1898 most American homes did not have indoor plumbing sophisticated enough to clog the way modern drains clog. The technology of the household drain and the technology of the drain cleaner grew up together, and the chemical industry was right there from the beginning, making sure that as drains got more complicated, the solutions got more expensive. By 1923, you had Drano on the market. The Dracket Company, based in Cincinnati, launched it as a granular lye product mixed with aluminum shavings. When you poured it down a drain with water, the aluminum reacted with the lye, generated heat, and the heat helped melt the grease. It was an effective product. It is still an effective product, but it was also, from day one, a product that depended on you forgetting that there was an older, gentler, cheaper way to do the same job. The 1934 Penn State Agricultural Extension Bulletin I mentioned earlier was titled Sanitation Practices in the Rural Pennsylvania Dairy. It was authored by a man named Dr. Howard Sechrist, who was an extension agent based out of State College. Sechrist had spent 4 years driving from farm to farm in Lancaster, Lebanon, and Berks counties, documenting how the plain communities kept their milking equipment clean without access to the commercial sanitizers that were starting to dominate the larger English-run dairies. On page 19 of that bulletin, Sechrist describes what he calls the peroxide method, and he notes, in language that is unusually plain for an academic document, that the Amish and Mennonite households observed in this study report no clogged drains in households where the monthly peroxide treatment is practiced, even in homes with more than 10 residents and heavy daily cooking. 10 residents, heavy daily cooking, no clogged drains. That bulletin is still available. It is in the Penn State Library System. The call number is, if you want to find it, Agricultural Extension Bulletin 287, October 1934. I am giving you these specifics because I want you to know that this is not something I am making up. This is not folk wisdom dressed up in a costume of research. This is the research. It has been sitting there for 90 years in a library that anyone with a card can walk into, while the chemical companies built a $40 billion industry on top of you not knowing it existed. Let me tell you about Eli Byler, because I have mentioned him 3 times tonight and I owe you the full picture. Eli is 68 years old. He lives outside of Intercourse, Pennsylvania, in a farmhouse that was built by his great-great-grandfather in 1851. The plumbing in that house was added in 1948 when his grandfather finally agreed to bring water in from the well into the kitchen. That plumbing, the original copper and cast iron from 1948, is still in the walls. It has never been replaced. It has never been snaked. It has never been hydrojetted. Eli's wife Anna, and her mother before her, and her mother's mother before that, have been pouring 3 tablespoons of 3% hydrogen peroxide and 1 tablespoon of kosher salt down that kitchen drain on the first Sunday of every month, without exception, for 76 years. I asked Eli, when I sat at his kitchen table last spring, what he thought would happen if they stopped. He looked at me for a long moment and he said, in the slow, careful way he says everything, I expect the drain would clog. That is what drains do when you stop taking care of them. He said it the way you or I would say that a car needs an oil change. He said it the way you would say that a roof needs to be swept of leaves in the fall. He said it as if it were so obvious it almost did not need to be said, and that is the part that has stayed with me. For Eli Byler, the question is not whether the peroxide method works. The question is why anyone would do anything else. I want to spend a few minutes on the chemistry because I know there are people watching this who are skeptical, and skepticism is healthy. You should not believe me just because I am telling you a story about an Amish farmer. You should believe me because the chemistry holds up. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2. It is water with an extra oxygen atom attached. That extra oxygen atom is what makes it useful. When peroxide comes into contact with organic matter, particularly the kinds of organic matter that accumulate in a kitchen drain, the molecule breaks down. The H2O part stays as water. The extra O atom is released, and it is released in a form that chemists call nascent oxygen, which is an extremely reactive single oxygen atom looking for something to bond with. What it bonds with is the grease, the soap scum, the food particles, the biofilm of bacteria that coats the inside of your drain pipe. It oxidizes them, it breaks them down at the molecular level. It loosens their grip on the pipe wall. That is step 1. That is what the peroxide does. The salt does something different. Salt, sodium chloride, is mildly abrasive in its crystalline form. When you pour it down a drain with the peroxide, it does not dissolve immediately. It travels along the pipe wall, particularly on the curved bottom of the trap, and it scours. It is the same principle as using salt and ice to clean a cast iron skillet. The crystals provide mechanical action that water alone cannot provide. They scrape the loosened biofilm off the pipe wall and carry it forward. That is step 2. Step 3 is the overnight wait. People skip this step, and when they skip it, the method does not work as well, and then they assume the method is broken. The overnight wait is essential. The peroxide continues to react for 6 to 8 hours after you pour it. The reaction slows down, but it does not stop. By morning, every molecule of peroxide has either reacted with organic matter or broken down into water and oxygen. There is nothing left in the pipe except water, salt, and the loosened debris. Step 4 is the hot water flush. A full kettle, brought to a rolling boil, poured down the drain in a steady stream. The hot water does 2 things. It melts any remaining grease that the peroxide loosened but did not fully dissolve. And it provides the volume and the velocity to carry the loosened debris past the trap, past the vertical stack, and out into the main sewer line where it belongs. That is the entire method. 4 steps, about 60 cents in materials, once a month. Now, here is where the counter-arguments come in, and I want to address them directly because I know they are coming. The first counter-argument is that 3% hydrogen peroxide is too weak to clean a drain. People will tell you that you need 35% food-grade peroxide or industrial-strength peroxide to actually do anything. This is wrong, and it is wrong in a dangerous way. 35% peroxide is corrosive. It will burn your skin. It will damage your eyes. It can ignite organic materials on contact. The whole point of the Amish method, the whole genius of it, is that 3% peroxide is gentle enough to use without protective equipment, gentle enough that a child can pour it, gentle enough that it will not eat your pipes or your septic system, and yet when combined with the salt and given the overnight reaction time, it is more than strong enough to do the job. The chemical companies want you to believe you need something more aggressive because something more aggressive is something they can patent and sell to you at a markup. 3% peroxide is sold at every pharmacy in America for under $2 a bottle. There is no markup, there is no margin, there is no reason for them to tell you about it. The second counterargument is that this method will not work on a drain that is already badly clogged. This one is partially true, and I want to be honest with you about it. If your drain is completely backed up, if the water is not draining at all, if you have standing water in the sink that has been there for 2 days, the peroxide and salt method is not going to clear that clog in one night. That is a fully formed blockage, and it needs mechanical intervention. You need a plunger, or you need a snake, or in the worst cases, you need a plumber. The peroxide method is a maintenance method. It is preventive. It is what you do so that you never get to the point of needing a plumber in the first place. The reason the Amish do not have clogged drains is not because peroxide is a miracle that dissolves established blockages. It is because they never let the blockage form. They are treating the drain every month, removing the thin film of grease and biofilm before it has a chance to thicken into something that water cannot pass through. By the time most American homeowners are looking up drain cleaning solutions, they are already past the point where the gentle method would have helped them. The lesson is not that peroxide is weak. The lesson is that prevention is everything. The third counterargument is the one I find most revealing. It is the argument from plumbers themselves. I have spoken to a number of plumbers about this method, both on and off the record, and the response I get is almost always the same. They acknowledge that it works. They acknowledge that they know it works. And then they tell me that they do not recommend it to their customers because, in the words of one plumber who asked me not to use his name, if everyone did that, half of us would be out of business inside of 2 years. Half of us would be out of business inside of 2 years. Sit with that for a moment. That is not me speculating. That is not me being conspiratorial. That is a working plumber with 23 years in the trade telling me directly that the only reason the drain cleaning industry exists at its current size is because the average American homeowner has never been taught a basic maintenance routine that would prevent 90% of the calls he gets. He told me that his typical week includes between 15 and 20 calls for clogged kitchen drains and bathroom drains, and that he estimates conservatively that 12 to 16 of those calls per week would never happen if the homeowner was doing a monthly peroxide treatment. 12 to 16 calls a week, at an average of $275 per call. That is one plumber, in one mid-sized American city. Doing the math on that, you are looking at somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a week in revenue. That depends entirely on the customer, not knowing what Sarah Brackbill wrote down in 1887. Now multiply that out, there are roughly 480,000 working plumbers in the United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Even if only a fraction of their work is residential drain cleaning, you are looking at an industry that pulls in, by conservative estimates, somewhere between $8 and $12 billion a year in revenue. That is, in a very real sense, the financial cost of a forgotten Sunday evening ritual. That is what we are talking about. That is the size of the gap between what you have been told and what is true. I want to circle back to something I said earlier about the 1934 Penn State Bulletin, because there is one more detail in that document that I did not mention, and I think it is important. On page 22, in the conclusion section, Dr. Sechrist wrote a sentence that I have read probably 50 times. He wrote, "The practices observed in these households represent a refined system of preventive sanitation that, were it adopted more widely in rural and urban homes alike, would substantially reduce both the incidence of plumbing failures and the household expenditure on commercial cleaning agents." That sentence was published by a state agricultural extension service in 1934. It was distributed to county extension agents across Pennsylvania. It was, in theory, public information available to any housewife who wrote to the extension office and asked for it. And yet, within 10 years, by the mid-1940s, the bulletin had been quietly retired. It was not actively suppressed. It was not pulled from circulation in any dramatic way. It was just allowed to fall out of the rotation. New bulletins were printed, the old ones were not reprinted. And extension agents stopped recommending the peroxide method because increasingly the chemical companies were sending them free samples of the new commercial products and asking them to recommend those instead. That is how knowledge disappears in this country, not through book burnings, not through censorship, through quiet attrition, through the slow replacement of the old, free, simple thing with the new, expensive, branded thing, through the unspoken understanding that if you want to keep your job, your funding, your relationships with the manufacturers who underwrite your industry, conferences, you do not spend a lot of time talking about the methods that would put those manufacturers out of business. The Amish kept the method because the Amish do not attend industry conferences, they do not read trade publications, they do not get free samples in the mail. They were, in this one specific case, protected from the loss of knowledge by the very thing that the rest of us spent the 20th century pitying them for. Their separation from the modern commercial world meant that when the modern commercial world decided to forget something useful, they did not forget along with it. I think about that a lot. I think about all the other things they might still know that the rest of us have forgotten. I think about the wood ash and the 5-gallon bucket I mentioned earlier, which is coming in the next video, and I think about the dozen other techniques I have been documenting from communities in Holmes County, Ohio, and in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, and in the smaller settlements out in Indiana and Iowa, where the old books are still on the kitchen shelves and the old methods are still being practiced because nobody ever gave anybody a reason to stop. So when you do this on Sunday, when you stand at your kitchen sink with your bottle of peroxide from the drugstore and your box of kosher salt from the grocery store, I want you to think about what you are actually doing. You are not just cleaning a drain, you are picking up a thread that was almost lost. You are doing something that Sarah Brackbill did in 1887, that Dr. Sechrist documented in 1934, that Anna Byler did last Sunday in a farmhouse outside of Intercourse, Pennsylvania, and that her daughter and her daughter's daughter will do every first Sunday of every month for as long as that farmhouse stands. You are stepping back into a chain of knowledge that the chemical companies and the plumbing contractors and the marketing departments of every major cleaning brand spent the better part of a century trying to break. And the only thing it cost you was $3 and 1 hour of your time. That is not a small thing. That is a reclamation. That is a small, quiet act of resistance against an industry that has been telling you for 90 years that you are not capable of taking care of your own home without their help. You are capable. You have always been capable. The knowledge was just hidden from you, and tonight, in this video, in this moment, it is not hidden anymore. Pour the peroxide, pour the salt, wait until morning, run the hot water, and then come back and tell me what happened.